Welcome back. This week, we're going to be talking about debunking the myths associated with the second trimester of your pregnancy. So, let's start with the first one because a lot of times people talk about or expect that the second trimester is going to be the quote unquote perfect trimester, right? And while it's true that many women experience some relief from the first trimester nausea, there can actually be new symptoms or new things that start to be experienced in second trimester, whether it's back pain or leg cramps or heartburn or even sinus congestion, because every pregnancy is unique. But what I'd like to bring to your awareness is to start looking at symptoms as little indications. So, you on your car dashboard, you have all the different things that tell you how full your gas tank is, or how much battery charge you have, or what speed you're going at, and all the things, right? So, we have that visual dashboard to look at. And since we don't have that visual dashboard for our own bodies, which unfortunately or fortunately, you will only get one body, right? And so, unlike your car, which you can replace the parts or get a new car, this is the body we have. So, we want to try to make sure that we can take care of it. So, while the expectation might be that second trimester might be easier, what happens as a result is that sometimes when we do experience symptoms, a lot of times that gets written off as just being normal pregnancy symptoms. And might be bursting your little bubble with this, but sadly, just because it's common doesn't mean that it's normal, right? This is a little bit of a soapbox topic for me, but I want to really make sure that we understand that symptoms are kind of like the little indication on the dashboard that something is going out of balance. And what usually starts out as a small or mild thing, if it's left unaddressed, we're just like, oh, that's no big deal, or that's just common, or that's just normal during pregnancy, or that's just normal for me, then we start to ignore it perhaps, or just let it do what it needs to do. And then it starts to create more and more things that start to occur. So we just want to make sure that we're paying attention to what our body is trying to tell us, because it's kind of like the tip of an iceberg, right? So in an iceberg, you only see a little bit of the top. Even if it looks really big, it's still just a really small portion of the iceberg. The bulk of it is happening underneath the surface. So, similarly, in our bodies, we only feel about 10% of what's happening. So, we want to try to make sure that we not only feel good, but that we're really checking in with ourselves. Like, how is our sleep? How is our digestion? Do we wake up feeling rested, right? Like, do you get good quality sleep? Are you able to sleep through the night? Are you having to wake up to use the restroom? Because that's going to lead into myth number two. But what is the quality of your life like, right? Have you just accepted that this is just normal for you? So, myth number two is if you're having to wake up to use the restroom in the middle of the night, it could actually be an indication that you're dehydrated. So, myth number two is that it's normal to get up and use the restroom at any point in your pregnancy. And while, yes, perhaps at the very end stages of pregnancy, perhaps if the baby's positioned in a way that may be pushing on your bladder, yes, maybe. But for the vast majority of our pregnancy, the baby is not big enough to be doing that or even in a position to be doing that. So it's usually an indication that we're actually dehydrated, whether or not you're pregnant, but chances are if you're watching this video, you probably are on your prenatal journey. But if you're getting up to use a restroom in the middle of the night, one thing you could try is taking some Himalayan salt, or ideally Himalayan salt, but if not, some sea salt, and putting a small pinch of that in your glass or your bottle of water, especially throughout the day, but especially whatever water you drink in the evening or last drink in your day before going to bed. Because what happens is the water can then get better absorbed into the tissues of your body so that it doesn't just go into your system and out of your system super quickly, right? So try it out, see what you think, and if it works or if it doesn't work, I'd love to hear your comments below. So, myth number 3 is that cravings are again normal in pregnancy, right? So you might have experienced this in first trimester. Again, we tend to think of having food cravings or food aversions as a normal part of pregnancy. Again, it's common, but not normal. So, we talk a lot about digestion actually in the Move Well, Eat Well, Live Well course, which is linked below if you'd like to check that out. But food cravings or food aversions can actually be an indication that you're having trouble digesting that thing. So if you're craving the sweets or if you're craving the fries, you might be having trouble breaking down carbohydrates or challenges breaking down fats. Or a lot of people start to become a lot more vegetarian. They start to avoid meat because many women in general have a hard time breaking down protein and fat anyhow. And then, especially during pregnancy, with all of the things happening, it can be even more challenging. So sometimes we just develop a natural aversion because it doesn't feel good in our systems. So rather than, well, I'm not saying that you have to become vegetarian or vegan, but rather than avoiding something, I would like to help support you to actually break down the protein and fat more efficiently, more optimally, or break down the carbohydrates so that your body can actually get the appropriate nutrients. That ties into myth number 4, which is that you can't do anything to avoid having gestational diabetes. No, I know this is a big topic and we'll talk about this more in upcoming videos, but a lot of times either we have a family history of diabetes or we experienced gestational diabetes in a previous pregnancy. So, every pregnancy is different, which you've probably heard, but just because you have a genetic predisposition to something doesn't mean that you are destined to get it, right? I do a lot of work in the world of epigenetics, and we are able to enhance or suppress the enzymatic function so that we are not destined to then experience X symptom or X condition, and we could reroute our journey and our experience accordingly. One of the things that I talk to my practice members about in terms of gestational diabetes is to really make sure that we're breaking down carbohydrates appropriately, right? So that our pancreas can work optimally and that we don't have this excess stress or release of insulin. So that starts as early as possible, but really looking at how often are you having a bowel movement? What is the quality of your bowel movement? And talking about all of that. So these are all the things that we talk about when I work with my practice members. And then myth number 5 is that you should limit your exercise to something like prenatal yoga. And prenatal yoga is fantastic, but we really want to make sure that in addition to stretching our body, that we also strengthen our body, right? So if you're doing that in your prenatal yoga work, great. However, we also want to make sure that you're paying attention to your biomechanics in your body as you move throughout the day, right? So it's really great if you're doing yoga, but I'm guessing you might be doing it maybe 30 minutes a day, 60 minutes a day at most, right? You're probably not doing it much more frequently than that. But we want to make sure that that your body is getting micro breaks, but along with that, that we're training our body to move properly, to prepare our bodies to be able to care for this newborn once the baby arrives. So, with that, we want to make sure that you're doing optimal strength training as well. It doesn't have to be that you're going out to the gym and lifting heavy weights. I'm not saying that you have to go and start doing that, especially in second trimester. But I do want to make sure that you're moving your body properly. And so that could be even something as simple as that when you bend down to lift something, even if you're physically able to bend from your back and lift something up, start practicing that whatever you're lifting is a very, very heavy object, right? Because that's going to start priming your body for lifting the baby repeatedly all the time when the baby is born. Right. So we want to make sure that you're bending from your hips and your knees as opposed to bending from your low back. Because the fastest way to injure your low back as an experienced chiropractor is to bend, lift, and twist simultaneously from your back. And that's a lot of reaching behind to hand your child something or, giving them whatever snack or pacifier or whatever you need to give them or taking it out or that there's a lot of that. So we want to really set your stage for your body as early as possible. If this sounds interesting to you, please feel free to check out the course as linked below. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks for joining us.